I don't know if I'm getting ahead of it, but I think this is what we're supposed to be in tonight. Or Gidsis, Kame, Amartante, Tonate. Be ye angry and sin not, Ephesians 4:26. This is imperative mood. Now it is a misnomer to think imperative mood is always a commandment. Notice, it's the mood of the command, a request, an entreaty, or one type of prohibition. So there's two types of prohibitions. One of them is in the imperative mood. It would also could be an exhortation. Let me illustrate this in English. In English, I might say, if I were a waiter, I might say to the customers, enjoy your meal. That's in the imperative mood, but it's really an exhortation. So it can function in that light as well. In English, we say you go, don't you go, and we just leave the you out, go or don't go. Okay. We often use the imperative for prayers and requests as well as commands. So prayers might be, give us this day our daily bread. See, that might be an imperative mood. And you don't want to interpret it like you're commanded how to do something. In this case, it's a request or a prayer. The Greek imperative entails two tenses. That is the present tense, that's durative or linear or continuous action, and the aorist tense, which is punctiliar action, or he says point action. Now, as I remind you, don't think the imperative the aorist tense is just a single act. That's a misnomer. It can be a single act, but it's how the matter is viewed. You're summarizing it. See, it's more like a summary, wrapping it up all in a ball, if you want to please, on a kind of see more how it's used. The tenses are formed by the addition of the endings of the proper tense stem minus the augment in the case of there, so there's no augment. Why is there no augment? Well, the augment indicates it's temporal, it indicates time. In this case, it's not the past tense. The aorist is not temporal. Most singular thing, the most obvious thing to an English student, and to one in English, I don't know about other languages, about the Greek imperatives, that the conjunction has a third person imperative. We don't have that in English. And we say el theto, let him go. That's third person. El theto san, let them go. That's third person plural. So we have, that's from Ericomai, most of these are. So this is their third person endings. And that's in the imperative mood, the imperative mood has its own set of endings. And you have to learn them because they're separate. And we have the singular is epsilon and no ending, or there's no ending. It has an epsilon with no ending, or it may have the old ending, theta, iota, the. Okay? And the plural would be an epsilon or an ending of te, tau epsilon. Or a sigma is sometimes found, that would be in your singular right here. That goes with the singular right there. Right. Eto would be your third person. And etosan, eton, or esan, etosan. Son is always used in the Koine. So the son ending is most frequent in the Koine. Epsilon and son. Now we'll see some instances of it down here. All right. And the middle and passive have the same form in the present tense. Keep that in mind. So the present imperative here, and of course this is your active, and then the middle passive have the same form. So and su, esto, and esthe, estoson. That would be your, this is, I guess, your third person. Of course, there is no first person. You don't command yourself to do something. Okay. So we only have a second and third person, whereas English only has second person imperative. And then we have a present imperative of luo, our common word we use. The A, just put an epsilon on the end of it. You lose. The veto, that's let him lose. Now, the problem we get into, it has it translated, let him do this. And our problem we run into this, let him go, let them go. That sounds like we're giving permission to do something. So that translation can be misleading, and it's found in the King James American Standard pretty frequently. Well, the imperative, it's the third person imperative, let. And that is, to an English reader, that is misleading. And that's, I don't know how we solve that problem, but if you're teaching a Bible class, you can just point it out that that's third person and lay this out for them and say, look, he's commanding, and they said, let him loose, I command him to loose. All right, let him loose, or let them loose. I command them to loose, or I exhort them to loose, say. All right, it could be an exhortation. Or, okay, and the question, that's something that is really important that we get that straight to people, because many read that as permission. Middle and passive, let's go back to Lulu, you lose for yourself. Now, you lose for yourself, that's sounds like middle, doesn't it? Lose for yourself, and you be loosed would be your passive. Be loosed would be passive, and loose for yourself. And of course, you, second person, would be middle. And the esto, let him loose for himself, that's in middle. And be loosed, you be loosed. Let him be loosed. Let him be loosed. And again, our problem is let in English can imply, it doesn't have to. Now, if you study the meaning of let, it doesn't have to imply permission to do something. So that's where it's not an incorrect translation, but it's because of the way people think, it can be misleading. It's like the problem we have with the word in Romans 10:17, where it says, so then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. The word hearing there is a noun, it's not an infinitive or participle. So it's like they had a hearing at the courthouse, or they had a hearing at the office building, or they had a hearing at Congress, or whatever. And so the word hearing is a noun there in Romans 10:17. And people read that, they think it's the act of hearing with the ears, but they miss the point. Actually, it is the report of verse 16. Another word that we get into is the word preach, or preaching. The word translated preaching can be an infinitive, or it can be a noun. And several times it's a noun, and denominational preachers have misinterpreted it to be the act of preaching. When Jonah, they repented at the preaching of Jonah. And they say, well, because when Jonah was preaching, it caused them to repent. No, that's not it. Because the word preaching is a noun. They repented toward the preaching of Jonah. I think they rejected Jonah's preaching at first, and they repented and turned back toward Jonah's preaching and believed it. And I think the men that threw him overboard were witnesses of him being vomited out by the sea creature on the land. And that would be reasonable. They row back to shore, and he's vomited out, and they're there to see it. And so they're the witnesses. This is the man we cast overboard, and they probably went to Nineveh. Now, there's evidence that the city of Nineveh was very much involved in the sea trafficking at that time. They were so powerful. Okay. Anyhow, that's my thinking on it. And so the word preaching there, they repented at the preaching of Jonah rather. They repented toward what he preached, and they changed their mind about what he preached. Okay. So again, that's another instance where the English word can be a noun or an infinitive. Okay. All right, let me move on, or participle. Practice the imperative ago, I lead, didasko, I teach. Right? So they want us to practice that, so maybe we can do that for next week. Try to figure out those endings if we can. Now he says, study what's been review what's been stated about moods. Now, mood shows you the kind of action it is. Indicative is something that's statement of fact, whereas the subjunctive is more of a possibility. And the imperative mood is less possible than the subjunctive. And why is it less possible? When I command you to do something, I don't know whether you're going to do it or not. So it's more in the realm of possibility, but it's remote possibility. I don't know whether you're going to do it or not. I have no idea. And then we have the optative mood, which we'll get to later. But these are your basic moods. All right. Note carefully, contracts, that be contractions, like poieo and so forth, react like indicative tereo. So let me write that out. Tereo. So take these two letters out and you'll have the word they're dealing with, tereo. And it becomes tereto. And when we put those together, it's hard to say it. So it contracts and becomes this right here. Tereto. Let him keep. So we put an eto ending. Let's go back and see. Tereto. We get an eto ending. And then we have tereo. So I'll come in and lay this out and let you see what they're trying to say here. So tereo, it would be take the epsilon out and the ta, and then you have it tereo. Let's just take both those out. Won't worry about that diacritical marking. Tereo, and then you make it eto, and two epsilons together become a diphthong, epsilon iota. That's how that happened. Questions about how that came out? That happens a lot in your contractions. Okay. The imperative of the verb to be, a being verb, is the essay. And let's go back and review what we had up here. Sometimes the ending is theta iota. That ending, right? That's your old ending. It stayed with a me. That ending stayed with a me. And so that's a me, and it's essay, esto, and este. And that's a basic ending for indicative too, isn't it? Right there, este. Estosan, and that will be, those are your third person. Of course, we have no first person form. And let's go back and look at one thing here. Now, I don't guess we need to. Any questions?
Yes, sir. On the isthe, should that be istha with an epsilon instead of iota? I ask because the singular ending is generally epsilon in the earlier section that gave the endings.
Okay. Let me check my original book. Okay. Okay. This is under 352. Now this is what they have in the original book. I think that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Remember, we go back, and what they've done is they've got the old ending in it, as I pointed out a moment ago. The epsilon goes away, no ending, and the epsilon, and there would be no ending, and they put the theta iota on the ending. Normally, it would be like this. It just ends with an epsilon. The stem plus an epsilon, but you put the theta iota on it. And so I guess the iota gets absorbed and thrown away instead of the epsilon. Theta iota replaces the epsilon. That's the way I understand it.
It's in the book. My book, it's got an epsilon there. Imperative verb ame as this follows, singular este. Right there, instead of iota, it's got a epsilon on page 145.
Well, my original book that I have has iota, sigma, theta, iota.
Okay.
Uh,
I've got the newer book.
Well,
2014.
I think that it replaces the epsilon, is what it does. Okay.
Okay.
We'll see. We might run into it down here. I will double check that with my other grammar books. Okay.
I think you're right, because I looked that word up, looked 1917. That's what it has. Este. It has iota anyway.
Iota, sigma, theta, iota.
Yeah, it's Luke 19:17. It says, "Be thou este." It's thy. In other words, iota.
Okay.
So that'd be it's just wrong in the book.
Well, I'm sorry. This book here, I think, I hope I gave it to you guys the update a week or two ago. I don't know whether I did or not. But anyhow, but I think this is correct. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so again, one of the things is this thing has a third person imperative. Completely, we just don't have it in English. You gotta explain it every time you run into it. And the translation of let sounds like they're giving you permission to do something, okay? And so that's a little bit misleading, okay? All right. All right, any comments further? All right. First, aorist active imperative of little. So we have an aorist active. So now the only two tenses we have in imperative are present tense and the aorist tense. And so it's aorist active imperative. Now, you can't command somebody to do something in past tense, okay? You know, the U.S. Constitution forbids making an ex post facto law. That's after the fact. You were driving today, the speed limit is 65, you're driving 64 down the highway. and you're just well within the law, but they make it a retroactive law. And it says the speed limit now on that highway, and they make it retroactive back to 2 weeks before the law was made. And they catch you, but you were driving 64, and and then they made it retroactive, and now you broke the law. Well, our Constitution says they cannot. Nobody, no part of the government can make an ex post facto law like that. Can't be done. And that's crazy to even think about making a law after the fact. Okay, there's nothing fair about it. Okay. So we don't have an imperative mood in the past tense. Aorist is not past tense here. That's when it doesn't have the augment. Does that make sense now? What I'm saying? Okay, loose on, you loose. And it's commanding you to loose. You loose the servant, you loose the slave, you loose the debt. Okay, loose on. Loosate. Wish they'd get this Copilot off here. I'm gonna get rid of that. Paste with Copilot, it can't even see my stuff. There it is. Lusato, let him loose. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see it on yours? Or is it just on my screen? Got paste options on it.
Yeah, we see the paste with Copilot.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. I'm getting rid of it. Okay, Lusate, you loose. Lusatosan, let them loose. And again, I command them to loose. See, all right, let him loose. Lusato. All right, the middle voice, and again, how do you know it's whether it's middle or passive? You just got to go by context. And sometimes it's just hard to tell which it is. So, loosing for yourself. All right, loosing for yourself. And you are loosing for yourself. And so, and Lusaso, let him loose for himself. That would be middle. Lusaste, loose for yourselves, plural. Lusastosan, let them loose for themselves. Any question now? There's active, aorist, active. Notice the sigma in there. It's got a sigma, but it doesn't have an augment, no augment out here in front of it. So you got the sigma in the middle and the active and middle. Now your middle and passive are different in form in the aorist. In the imperative and the imperative, they're different in form. So each have a difference. Whereas in the present tense, they have the same form. So your present are the same form. But your middle and passive are different in the aorist. So if you have this right here, it is definitely middle, these forms. Then the passive form is down here. It's got a theta. And so we have a theta as playing it out for us. The theta, you lose, be loose, you be loosed. The theto, let him be loosed. And lose theta, you be loosed. And that's plural. The thetosan, let them be loosed. And again, don't be careful of misinterpreting the word let. Okay. Contracts, that would be contractions, lengthen before the tense singular. Right? Speak for yourself. Right? And that's laleo. That's from Lalo. I'll write it out. Wow. There you, there you are. That's what we're talking about. That's the word right here that this comes from. Well, any question?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll phrase it very well, though. The loosing for yourself versus loosing yourself.
You're doing the loosing for your own benefit or causing yourself to loose.
So it could be either.
Yeah, but the middle voice is you're doing it to or for yourself or for your own benefit. Whereas the passive is you are being loosed.
Correct. I was thinking more of the middle situation. So it has two potential ways it could imply.
Yeah, but
Okay. That's what I was wondering.
anyways, be ye loosed. But it could be, all right. Jesus could, you know, he could say, be ye loose from your sins by obeying the gospel or something like that. I can see how that could be stated. Oh, I would think you'd probably find the middle voice pretty frequent in something like that, though. Okay, but again, they have different forms that we can see right here because the aorist has different forms. The aorist and the future are the ones that have different forms. Of course, we don't have a future imperative. The aorist and the present both are future in their actions, or either present or future. I can command you to do something, and it might be that you're going to do it in the future, but it might be going to do it right now. But either one of those, context would tell you which it is. And
Is the loci, it almost looks like an infinitive.
yes, it does. It kind of looks like an infinitive, doesn't it? In fact, we're going to find some of these forms are identical to present indicative. I think the loci is one of them. It's the same as in the form. Este, I think, is a form. If you look it up, it's one of our forms for the present indicative. All right, from that for a me. It's got the same form. Levete, there's one right there, has the same form. So when you get to that, it's either present imperative or present indicative. And you can't tell except by the context. Now, it would be part of the context might be if you had may with it. So that would tell you, let's go back up here, may with it can't go with the indicative mood. So if I had may with it, that would automatically tell me it's what? Well, that would automatically tell me it's imperative. See, may luete. May luete, if I had may luete, then that would make it a present imperative because may can't go with the indicative. It doesn't go with it, okay? So there might be something in the context that would tell you. Sometimes there's not. All right. John 14:15, I think it is. Let me look it up. Everyone turn there. And I guess I wish maybe I could call it up. John 14:15. Call it up in Greek. And I'll have to put this up on the screen for you. I think it will be something good for us. John 14:15. All right. Well, look at John 14:15 in a minute. Now I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to put that up. I'm going to minimize it. And I'm going to stop sharing it. And I'm going to get back in and share again. In this case, oh, yeah, eSword, that's what I want. Share eSword. All right, here we are. Can you see John 14:15?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put it
Yes,
into Greek. This will be the Byzantine text. All right. And this has the helps with it, okay? It may help us a little bit, don't have the exact critical markings. Aeon, agapate, and so if, this is a conditional sentence again, and may, tas, and so here he says this is a verb, and it's present tense, active voice, subjunctive mood, it's subjunctive. That didn't help us. I thought it was imperative. If you love me, then my commandments. Okay, here it is. Keep this word terel. It's from terel. It's one of our verbs here. It's aorist, active, imperative, he says. So it could be imperative. And so he calls it active aorist imperative. So that's how they conjugate it. So this is active imperative. So, and so he's saying, keep my commandments. So let's see how the American Standard translates it. You will keep my commandments. See, they interpret that to be aorist indicative. All right. So again, unless we have a textual variant there, the King James, let's see how it goes with it. King James Version. Keep my commandments. It's taking it to be a commandment, imperative mood. I haven't checked whether there's textual variants there or not. It might be, but we'd have to look that up.
There is a textual variant.
There is.
Yeah, the teresata is tereseta.
I don't know. We'd have to look at the text, of course, of the textual variants. All right. That's what we'd have to do to get that more fully. So that's the difference in the two. And it's not in the structure, it's in the textual variant on that one right there. You will keep my commandments or keep my commandments. I tend to go with the King James text because I go with the Byzantine text, which is generally, the King James generally follows Byzantine text. Okay? I go with F35, which is a subset of the Byzantine text. Okay. Any questions?
Is that a third class conditional statement?
It kind of looks like it. It's subjunctive. Let's go back to it and see. All right. Aeon, but it's a subjunctive mood. Okay. There's present subjunctive, present active subjunctive. If you love me, you will keep. That's how they translate it. And King James said, if you love me, then you are commanded to keep my commandments. See, that's how the King James interprets it. Either one's permissible, just depending on whether this is the aorist subjunctive, as the King James has it, or let's look at this text up here. And see now, Terah, Resate. 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 Same ending. I don't see. Yeah, it's still a third class conditional. Right. They on. Okay. And so it's kind of locked up on me. I don't know why. That's what's going on there. I want to get out of it. It's not good. Peter's locked up on me. Okay, there. Can you see it back again now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. But that's a textual variant. I thought it was I thought it was a passage where the Greek could be indicative or imperative. Had a wrong passage in mind. There's another passage. There's some other passages where it is. Those are the same form. The vete is the same as right here, what I've highlighted. And you can see me highlighting it up toward the top of the upper right hand side of the screen. That's the same form as present indicative. Okay, second person. Present indicative, active. Okay, same form. I think the essay is also the same form as present indicative, middle passive. Right. So we do have STA. I think that's a form we've seen before too. All right. Yeah, aorist imperative, luo, we have luson, lusato, lusate, lusatosan. Active voice, we have the middle being different. Looks much like an infinitive. I think it's the same form as infinitive. So that can be a little bit confusing. Okay. Passive, got a theta in it. So we get the theta in the passive, and there it's passive. And that's what we had before. We just don't have an augment on it. That's the difference. Okay. Contracts lengthen before tense singular. Laison. Speak for yourself. Okay. All right, speak for yourself. Laison. And that's your laison. That would be middle voice, like they're interpreting. But the ending is active voice. The ending is active. I don't know how they come up with speak for yourself. I'm going to have to think about that one. Right. Second aorist indicative, second aorist active imperative. You have two aorist forms, and they both mean the same thing. It's just difference in form. Remember that. Same endings as present, but add them to the second aorist stem. Of course, less the augment because you don't have past tense in it. Okay? So you don't have the augment. Ballo, I throw a ballon. So it's second aorist. It's irregular in form. Remember that. I threw Paletto. I'm going to stop when I get down to here. Okay. We'll pick up on section 355 next week. I probably shouldn't have gotten off in the other stuff, but I thought I had something there to show you. Valet, active. So it's a little bit irregular. Valete, and then you got an ete ending. And Valetto, Valetosan. That's your active form, first and second, third person. And that'd be singular, and that'd be plural over here, of course. And then middle is balu, balesto. That's your singular, second, third person. And let's say, that's your middle, first, second person plural. Bolesto son, bolesto son, and that is a third person plural. The passive imperative, of course, made off the aorist passive stem, the sixth principal part, not off the second aorist stem. Right, that's what he's telling you there, so it's a little bit different. Right. Any questions now? We've been going about 45 minutes. I'm going to stop here. This will be a good place to stop. We'll get to the meaning of the imperative. We'll come back and see if you got any more questions. Any questions, anybody? All right.